Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Concordia University's Forest Space. This is part 2 of day 1. This is the second lightning round of Digital Skillshare Days. Now, this is a crowdsourced, community-led event that allows employees to actively participate in learning sessions that are by and for Concordia's staff and faculty. We'd like to begin by acknowledging Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. And we respect the continued connections with the past, present, and the future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. We're running today's event as a live stream both to YouTube and Zoom. So if you're still with us on Zoom, that's great. Comments, questions, put them in the chat. Same for those of you watching along on YouTube. We're watching those comments there. Here in the space, raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone around. Okay, it's very much my pleasure now. Pass this microphone over to the host for this lightning round, Records and Management Officer at the Records Management and Archives Department here at Concordia, Emmanuelle Hoarau. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second lightning round. Today we are diving headfirst in the world of artificial intelligence. Sorry, Emmanuelle. Yeah, I think your mic is off. Hi, everybody. Okay. Welcome to our second lightning round. Today we are diving headfirst into the world of artificial intelligence. For the next 45 minutes, you will hear quick, sharp insights from our presenters on how to use AI smarter, safer, and maybe even more creatively. Our first speaker today will be Gabriel Desjardins, who is on Zoom today. Gabriel works as an Access and Privacy Officer at Concordia, where he focuses on privacy compliance and access to information. But he also likes exploring practical approaches to using technology like generative AI within institutional and legal framework. Next up is Ryan Zhu, a data analyst at University Advancement. He is specialized in modeling and automation to streamline university reporting. His talk will walk us through the skills that still matter in data work, the risk newcomers should look out for, and the challenges experienced professionals face when trying to level up with these new tools. Our third speaker, Andrei Kalamkarov, is bringing us a live demo today. Andrei manages web and mobile platforms at University Communication Services, supporting employees in creating effective digital experiences. Today, he will be showcasing an homemade tool for us. And finally, the digital scholarship librarian, Joshua Chalifour, will shine a light on the dirty side of AI and offer a few tips to help counteract it. So each speaker has 5 minutes to present and 5 minutes for question. So get your question ready in the chat or in Zoom. And now Gabriel will start us off by sharing how to use AI to coach yourself and optimize your workflows.
Thank you very much, Emmanuelle, and thank you everyone for this opportunity to share my experiences using AI and also some of the tools available through Microsoft 365. Let me just start off by asking you to please excuse my raspy voice. I'm getting over a virus, but I very much wanted to share my presentation with you all today. So in my role of Officer Access and Privacy, I am required to work fast and to manage high volumes of requests. I'm essentially an office of one person. And I know many of us are in a similar situation, especially now with tighter budgets and fewer resources. So the question we're often all asking ourselves is, how do we keep up? Or how can we even get ahead when the demands increase, but there's little support? So last year, while I was exploring different AI agents available in Copilot, I came across one called Career Coach, and I wanted to experiment with it. That agent provides you with career advice or even ways to improve your workflows. Seeing this agent made me pause for a moment. I thought, why not explain my job in detail to AI, give it a breakdown of my responsibilities, my workflows, and simply ask the agent how it could work, how I can work better or more efficiently, and where I can save time. And because Copilot integrates directly with Microsoft 365, which is the same environment we're all using at Concordia, it felt like the perfect place to experiment. So I uploaded my job description. I added some details, went into a lot of details to explain how I actually complete my tasks on a day-to-day basis. And then I asked Copilot a simple question. I said, what can you help me with? How can you help me to work faster and more efficiently? And Copilot's response made it very clear that I could dramatically improve my efficiency by learning Power Automate. It showed me that so many of my repetitive tasks could be automated, such as acknowledging access to information requests, creating SharePoint folders, drafting routine emails, setting reminders and redundancies in Outlook, and so many other tasks as well. Things that I used to do manually over and over and over again for hundreds of requests. But there was one problem with the suggestion from Copilot. I had never opened Power Automate in my life. I had heard about it, and it sounded like an interesting tool that I would someday make time to learn how to use. But I wasn't familiar with coding. I didn't know anything about automation. But with Copilot guiding me step by step, I went from a total beginner from what you see on the screen, to creating my first production-ready flow, which is what you now see on the screen. And for anybody who knows Power Automate, this might look familiar. If you don't know Power Automate, I can just at least tell you that this is the automation of dozens of tasks through one simple prompt. I committed to spending just 20 minutes a day learning and exploring and building my Power Automate flow using AI as both my teacher and my career coach. And the results have been remarkable. I built an automation flow that now saves me about 2 to 4 weeks of work every year. And I know that I can push that number even higher as I continue to refine and expand my automations. To put it in another way, before automation, access to information requests could take me an additional 20 to 60 minutes of manual administrative tasks, and we process about 140 requests per year. Now, those steps happen in seconds. And over the course of a year, that adds up to almost an extra month of work time. It's as if I'm not even going on vacation. So scaled out to retirement age, that's basically gaining 2 to 3 full years of work that I wouldn't have had time to do otherwise. And again, I can push that even further. And here's the powerful thing about automation. The more time you save, the more time you have to save additional time to create more automation. It's a compounding investment and one that keeps growing. Of course, it wasn't always smooth. As anybody who's used generative AI before, I ran into hallucinations, cases where Copilot suggested steps that weren't actually possible without premium features. And a few times as well, those hallucinations cost me hours of work. But when I did get it to work, that feeling of finally getting it right after working through the issues with Copilot was worth it. And the time that I've saved since then has paid those frustrating moments back many times over. Plus, anytime I ran into issues, Copilot switched from being my career coach to being my IT troubleshooting person. As an example, I once received a 54-page error message in Power Automate, and I couldn't save my changes. But with Copilot's help, I was able to solve that issue in less than 10 minutes. So the bigger picture, we're in an era where we all have access to this powerful tool, one that can give anybody personalized career advice and practical guidance on optimizing workflows and troubleshooting issues just by typing in a question. And with the budget constraints that we're dealing with, finding smarter ways to work isn't just helpful, it's essential. Saving time and optimizing workflows is literally a question away. So here's my recommendation to all of you. Take 20 minutes this week to ask generative AI, Copilot, where you can save time in your work. Explain your role, your tasks, how you currently work, and then ask Copilot how you can work more efficiently. I promise you, it will be worth it. Thank you.
Do we have question for Gabrielle? Either in the chat? Maybe one question for you, Gabrielle. Where did you learn how to use Power Automate? Did you use Copilot or also training courses like Udemy that we have
Just
access to?
Copilot. Just
Just
Copilot. Yeah. I started by I explained my tasks, and then it told me that I should learn how to use Power Automate, and then I just continued asking questions, what I should do, how I should use it. And every step of the way, it taught me how to use it, which I think is really well, at least for me, the best way to learn is having, it's like having a tutor right beside you that you can ask a question at any moment, which I found to be incredibly helpful. So I've only used Copilot to learn how to use Power Automate.
Thank you so much for this chat. It was really interesting. I was wondering if the automations provoked any new challenges that you had to resolve. In other words, did using these automations generate any friction for you in any particular way?
Well, I guess it made me have to think about other things that I need to do and to think about some of the tasks, things that I've and projects that I've been wanting to work on. And so it stopped me from working in an automated way, I suppose, doing repetitive tasks again and again. And from there, I had to reflect on, okay, now that these things that I did automatically, a very repetitive task, now that those things are being handled, how else can I manage my time? What else can I focus on? What are the important things that I need to focus on? So in that sense, it required additional reflection. And then, like I said in my presentation as well, like the hallucinations are definitely frustrating also, because sometimes you have a lot of hope that you can create a certain automation or do a certain thing with the tool, but then you learn that Copilot was hallucinating the entire time. It was leading you down the wrong rabbit hole. But even that becomes a moment of learning. Like there's even been times where in talking to Copilot and it's telling me to do a certain thing, I learned I can't do that certain thing, but it made me think about another way that I could do it. So I found my own solution. So it becomes this kind of iterative process with Copilot.
Great. We have some questions online, and I will go to one question in the audience. So these are two questions they're both from Sandra and then Claire, but I'm going to mix them together. So how do you balance automation and personal approach? And can you give some specific examples of the tasks you were able to automate?
Yeah, so when we receive an access to information request, legally we have to provide a response within a maximum of 30 days. So I have to create reminders for myself and Outlook, redundancy emails to send me, hey, remember to send that request. I have to draft emails to different areas of the university to collect that information. So I'm able to populate template emails that saves me a lot of time for those specific areas. And I'm able to create reminders in Outlook and those redundancy emails as well. And I'm able to even save time for my colleagues also. Some of the tasks that some of my colleagues had to do, such as recording the requests on spreadsheets and tracking things, I'm able to save that time as well. And we also have to save our correspondence for access to information requests. And so that's something that I'm working on now as well, to not only save my time, but to save the time of my colleagues as well through some of these repetitive tasks.
Any other questions, comments in the audience?
Okay, all right, let's continue. And now we are going to move to our next presenter, someone who lives on Braves data, Ryan Zhu from University Advancement.
Can I see my slides, please? Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ryan from Advancement. I'm a data analyst. So today I'm going to share some of my thoughts on how AI have changed our data work. So when we talk about AI, actually we cannot really avoid talking about data because the data science has been one of the core driver of the modern AI development, and the data has always been the fuel for the AI. I believe like most of my fellow data professionals, I also started to pick up the AI wave at a certain point in my career. I started my data journey in biostatistics, where I spent months just to find one meaningful correlation and then to validate the p-value. And then I changed my roles into data engineer and data analyst, where I will spend countless hours to understand my data and then code my pipeline and build my own machine learning or deep learning models. And in 2017, after Google introduced Transformers architecture, the way how we build AI has been changed. So instead of building those task-specific machine learning or neural network models, people and those big companies started to build those large-scale and pre-trained models. And nowadays, how to effectively use those more general-purpose AI models has already become one essential skills for most of the data workers. So on one hand, what have been changed by the AI for our data work? First of all, I would like to say that the way how we take in and consume information has been completely changed. AI is very good at reduce the traditional information overload for us. It's already changed how the way we search for information, how we learn for a particular knowledge, how we write, how we code, even how we design and implement our data solutions. However, the data has created another new type of information overload for the data professionals. The speed of the AI development in the past few years is just breathtaking. There's new models, new technologies, new concepts, new tools released almost every week. And all those AI tools and models, they can produce data or information in a scale and speed that we couldn't imagine in the past. So if used without caution, the signal could be just buried like under the noise. And also there's all kinds of ongoing debates like the concerns of the ethics, the data privacy, the security, all kinds of issues will all raise that also. And secondly, I would like to say that AI have completely, or not completely, but already significantly changed the workload of the data professionals. In data science, we have this traditional rule, we call it 80-20 rule. That is, we roughly spend 80% of our time to do our data processing, wrangling, and 20% of the time to do our model and evaluate the models, right? And now with those AI tools, the workload has been shifted to the two ends. On the upper stream, there's a very heavy prompting work that we have to provide AI the more specific context and the knowledge of the data of the particular problem you're trying to solve, and make sure AI act the right way that you want it to. And on the downstream, the pre-trained large-scale models are kind of opaque to us. It's no longer the model that we build in-house. We know how exactly the algorithm is going to run, how the mistake could be happen. And we all know that those AI models, they hallucinate. So this raises a much heavier validation task for the data workers. On the other hand, what doesn't change? I would like to say the requirement of the data literacy and analytical thinking never changed. Although AI have shifted our role in our daily work, but the core skills, they remain unchanged. It's just we have to apply those skills differently nowadays. So I think in the end, I would like to say that I have no doubt AI will getting better and free us from more traditional data work. But I think our responsibilities as data workers never change. We are the guardians of the integrity, and we have to be the filters of the truth. Thank you, everyone.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you for that. I really like your reframing, because there's a lot of anxiety around AI, what's being lost, and we know somewhere where that things are shifting. Like when spreadsheets first came up, you know, people whose job was to just calculate things in spreadsheets, and then forecasting became easier, but it opened up new things and so on. And I really appreciate your reframing, because it shows where the effort now is being concentrated, and you can kind of intuit there that it's shifting. It's not a loss per se. You're just putting the energies in different places, but what you're generating as value and your ability to process is growing at the same time. So just wanted to acknowledge that. That was a very nice reframing of that.
We have one here.
Thank you very much for that, Ryan. It was really interesting. I know people who work in the data field, so it has relevance to them. But what about for the rest of us who are now kind of being recruited? We're all potentially becoming data workers. Do you have any, as like someone with all this experience inside as a data specialist, what advice would you give to us now as we're all somehow now in this wild west of AI? We're all going to be in charge potentially of finding data and working with data and building our own models. Do you have any tips?
Yes, of course. And I think that really opens a lot of small topics around AI as well. So I think if I were to give some tips as maybe like a little bit more experienced data user, AI user, I would like to say, first of all, as I said, we have to stay curious. You have to accept this new tool. It is here and it can help. That's for sure. And also the thing is, I know the entire AI development is overwhelming for everyone. I have no doubt. Me too. So I would like to say, remind what you are trying to find. Don't get distracted by the AI, because AI is really amazing. It can give you 10 insights while you are only interested in finding the most important one for you, right? Don't get distracted. Keep in mind what you are looking for, and also start small. Don't expect and use AI and want it to be like a magic one-shot solution for you, right? You start to play with it like Gabrielle showed us, with a domain, with a task that you're familiar to. It's just like repetitive. It's easy for you to get your hands wet, and also easier for you to validate whether AI really does the right job for you. And then you can start from there, learn more experience, and expand your use on AI. I think that would be my recommendations for everyone who's slightly new to AI tools.
Okay, no more question. So we are going to move to Andre from UCS.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back on this panel for the second year. So the big idea that I'm going to talk about is the multimodal workflow approach, getting better answers by switching perspectives. And I decided a while ago to prepare for this presentation, I really wanted to have a concrete demo, something visual. And I built it using the same approach. I used different models, and it was a really interesting journey with a lot of lessons, a lot of pivots, and interesting things I learned along the way. And I actually documented it all, and I'll share an article or a link afterwards. But for the sake of 5-minute presentation, I'm not going to go into much detail. So I'm just going to get it started. So the concept that I came up with my team of models is simple. So I took some images, some photos, and plugged them into, in this case, ChatGPT 5.2 thinking to describe the image fully and to generate a prompt for another model to create that image. Then I passed in simply the prompt to ChatGPT, to Copilot, and to Nana Banana, which is a Gemini model, to recreate that images just from the prompts. So what was really interesting is the differences between what each of these models created and the patterns that are kind of easy to observe. So again, this is the original image. This is ChatGPT. So this is kind of like the control group because ChatGPT described it, ChatGPT created it. Now, one of my observations in general about the ChatGPT models is it's kind of a perfectionist model. It really tries to include everything. Now, this is the Copilot model, same prompt. So this one seems to kind of sterilize it a little bit. This is the Gemini model. Next image. So the first image I just found online, it was actually my first image I thought about. And then I quickly realized I shouldn't find images online, and I shouldn't use images that are kind of, well known, like Concordia. So this is a picture I took about 10 years ago from a balcony from a friend in Villeray during kind of like a block party. So this is the image that ChatGPT recreated. Stunningly, a lot of detail was captured, including someone with a balloon. Oops. You see there's like a kid with a balloon, the very clear stop sign, the very clear street sign. This is Copilot. So one thing I observed is everything is kind of like straight, like everything is kind of straightened out a little bit. So this is the original, this is the new one. So I don't know, it kind of feels a little bit like, more like a touristy brochure feel. This is Nana Banana. Strikingly, what I find is that it captured the atmosphere really well. So this was an interesting test. So this is an image at my gym that my coaches share with everyone at the end. The original picture is actually very blurry, not super clean, even hard to read. Like my name is written right there. It's kind of really hard to see what it says. And this is how the models dealt with it. So this is ChatGPT, again, the control group. What I find about Copilot here, it's everything is kind of like, almost like a spreadsheet, like a column layout. So it took a little messy chalkboard and kind of turned it into a well-organized spreadsheet almost. And this one is Nana Banana. Again, it conserved quite a bit of atmosphere and the meaning behind it. Like it's kind of like the way I can describe Nana Banana in general is like it's a storyteller. It kind of captures the essence. This is a picture of my house, just like a kind of a messy countertop. This is the original. ChatGPT, quite detailed. Messed up a little bit on the reflection, which is one of the reasons I wanted to use this image, is because I've read that reflections are tricky for models to recreate. This is Copilot. Everything is kind of spaced out. It included some kind of fake apple. Very clean, right? Very, again, like a little sanitized. And this is Nana Banana. Incredibly realistic. Some small things, but the reflection is quite good. The speaker looks a little weird, but again, I didn't see the actual image, so it's very shocking how good it is. Now, I have another set of demos. This one, I took a slightly different approach. I fed the same image and had it be described by different models. So this is the original image, my daughter's work. ChatGPT described it. Copilot described it, and Gemini 3.1 Pro described it, and then I fed them all into ChatGPT to recreate the image. So different descriptions, same image generation model. So ChatGPT captured the essence that it's a kid's drawing. This looks like a clip art. This is what Copilot did with it, and this is what Gemini did with it. It captures a bit of the essence, but not quite the same. This one's really funny to me. So this is my office. So ChatGPT, quite realistic. We kind of already know that it's very perfectionist, very good. I found that Copilot cleaned it up. Like it really organized it. And what else is interesting, it's like it's all kind of fake. Like there's nothing real here. Like in the original image, you can kind of see like, Moo, like kind of like well-known things, like a Pokemon thing, some Legos and stuff. But here it's just kind of generic things that are very tidy. And this is Gemini 3. Again, a bit fakeish, but the essence is there, the atmosphere is there, including this kind of, unfinished basement look. This one is pretty funny too. So this is just a mural on Saint Laurent. This is what ChatGPT did. We created not the same composers here. If we can see, like, these are real composers, but it kind of like faked people. This is what Copilot did. So kind of like an illustration that completely went off script. So this is like the most drastic drift from the original image. And this is what Nano Banana did. So they recognized the composers and tried to do the feel, but of course didn't recreate the artist's actual style. And finally, same image, now again described by different models, recreated by ChatGPT. ChatGPT, although it did a good job, it went a little lazy with the descriptions. Copilot kind of similar, and again, you can kind of really see the two-column layout, very kind of spreadsheet feel. And Gemini really went into the detail and tried to capture everything as much as possible. So that's my demo.
Any questions from the audience? We have one here.
Hi. Actually, I wanted to ask, so based on these three models, which one would you rate like the best to use in daily life? Is it ChatGPT or Gemini?
So for images or for, let's say, building a project?
Let's talk about images first because this was your project. But
Yeah.
In general, like to do our daily chores, like daily work at Concordia.
Daily work, in my opinion, the Claude models, Opus 4.6, is the most intelligent by far. And in fact, the way I put this project together, I used Opus 4.6 to be my decision architect. I synthesized different models, ideas, and I typically would run them through Opus at the end to generate the final prompt. Because what was super interesting to observe is that they all had slightly different ideas and approaches to this project when I was building it. Like ChatGPT was very thorough, very analytic. Gemini was kind of a big picture and creative, and it kind of shows in the images too a little bit. It kind of captures the narrative really well. And Copilot was actually pretty good at work because it was very kind of like operational, very structured, very practical. Like it would turn a messy thing and turn it into a checklist, and that really showed in the images, I find, and also in the actual development of a project. But as a quick answer, I think if we're talking about the best model, it's 4.6 Opus.
We have one more over here.
Sorry, just a quick technical question. So you have these three models. You use them yourself for different applications, I guess. I'm just wondering if one model has more memory of your past interactions with it, and if you think that was an influencing factor in the output it created.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So I didn't use these models inside the actual apps. I used them externally as a blank slate project, feeding a bunch of markdown files. So I left a huge trace of documentation, starting from the initial context of this presentation, like what is this? A brain dump of ideas. This wasn't my idea, but I had ideas too. I wanted to present something as well. I had 6 or 7 ideas that I thought may stick, which were all rejected, by the way, by my team. So in that case, the context for this project, I was actually curating it very carefully. So in some cases, I even explicitly said, just use this information to give me the answer.
Do we have more questions in the audience? No.
All right. Now that we have explored the productive side of AI, it's time to talk about the not so glamorous side of it. So please, Joshua, share your wisdom about that.
Hello? Yeah.
Okay, hi, my name's Josh, and I am here to talk about the dirty side of AI. Okay, when we look at something like a house being built, we see the wood, and we pretty clearly know where that wood operating systems, our phones, it's in so many applications now automatically working that we don't really see the kinds of resources that are required to use it. It's just happening and it feels pretty free. So I want to get some visibility. And in order to do that with AI, we need to think about where AI lives, which is in data centers. Data centers, there's many data centers all over the world. These are very large buildings, oftentimes housing tens of thousands of computers. They have networking equipment, infrastructure, all kinds of things. And this infrastructure in the data center requires cooling. So the data centers are using massive amounts of electricity as well as water. The information up here is showing you the terawatt hours in 2010, so that's before all the AI boom was really taking off, to this year, where we're expected to see over 1,000 terawatt hours of electricity usage. And one of the key things about this electricity usage is where the data centers exist changes the resources that are providing that electricity. So in Quebec, of course, we have a lot of hydroelectricity, but in other places, you may have fossil fuels powering it. Or Google, Microsoft, Meta, they're all talking about nuclear-powered data centers now. So I have no clue what a terawatt hour looks like. I can't even begin to imagine what that means. Those numbers are out of the scope of my brain. But if I put it in relation with some other things, it does start to make sense to me. This data from Statista, which is it's a German company providing data, they are showing in 2022, so this is at the early side of our current AI boom, that globally data center usage was 460 terawatt hours. AI was 12, and Google on its own was 24. So if we look at the Government of Canada's data for Quebec, in 2020. We combined the industrial, the residential, the commercial, all of our electricity usage. It was 196 terawatt hours. So that's our province for a year. Remember, this year we're supposed to be over 1,000 terawatt hours globally, just for data centers. Now, that's where the AI lives. In order to have AI in the first place, we have to train large language models. ChatGPT used GPT-3, and that was when ChatGPT really exploded on the scene. In order to train GPT-3, the amount of electricity used was equivalent in terms of the carbon dioxide that it gave off to driving 123 gas-powered cars for a year. You could also see it another way. That's about the same amount of electricity as watching 1,600,000 hours of Netflix. Once you've trained the AI, people get to use it. And using it requires more electricity. So if you run your microwave for over an hour, that's about the same as creating a 5-second video with generative AI. If you do 10 to 50 prompts in ChatGPT, that's about the same as 500 milliliters of water being used, so like drinking a bottle of water. And the tips. I'm going to suggest a little more what can we not do. If you go on Microsoft's website, they have this nice page showing these 10 things, and they are saying that we should try these things with Copilot, the Microsoft AI. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but just as an example, number 4 is talking about summarizing a document. Now let's remember that generative AI creates stuff, oftentimes false information. So that's one thing if you're generating a summary. But another thing is, if you need to understand something, do you want to offload that understanding to the AI? These are some risks that we need to balance with the benefits of using the AI. And what I'm suggesting here is let's balance these risks and benefits in the context of the energy that it's using and the resources that it's consuming. So we can just keep that in mind. Now, most of us at Concordia are using Windows 11 because that's what we have to use. And if you go into the settings of Windows 11, you can disable the AI. So you can't exactly remove it from Windows, but at least you can stop it from happening automatically and make some choices. But that's not all. You have to go into the individual programs on your computer because many of them have their own AI settings. So you have to check those. And if you don't want it working automatically, you should manually turn those off. Now, it's not preventing you from using it, but it is giving you the agency and the decision of when you want to use it. Another thing that we can do is consider the tools we're using and whether we want to actually be using them. So Google, now when you do a search, you've probably all seen the first thing it shows you are AI results. You cannot turn those off. You can filter them out, but that's useless because they've already been generated. If you go to Bing, you can actually create an account with Microsoft. And if you go into the settings after you've logged into your account, there's a way to disable those AI generations. But that requires creating an account. So what we might choose to do is use an alternative. For example, in search, you could go to QWANT.com. This is a search engine with its own index, and it does not use AI. So that would be one example of substituting different applications where you do have a choice of whether you want to use AI or not. So I'm telling you all of this not to say that we should not use AI, but I am saying let's just reflect a little bit. And if you're about to do something where you could say, well, you know, it's reasonable that I could do this on my own without AI, maybe that's not a good use case for using AI. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Oh, we have one question over here.
Thanks, Josh. I think it's quite interesting how it connects back to the previous panel, actually, because it's about conscious choices, right? You know, whether it's your attention, you know, and having to understand what is really happening in the ecosystem so that you can make good decisions about those choices. And that's, again, whether it's a teenager on social media or, you know, you and I looking up the weather on an AI tool when, you know. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, I know you've been bringing some of this to some of the classes you've been teaching to the students at Concordia. I think that's new, and I wonder what kind of responses you're getting from the students, how they're feeling about this kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. So because I have been doing an increasing number of AI classes for students, I started introducing a statement at the beginning of the classes, much briefer version of what I just said, talking about the impact of the resource usage. And students are shocked, actually. They never know this. And I remember very clearly in one class, a student raised their hand and said, "Why is this legal?" And I said, you know, what can I tell you? This is the way the world is moving, but yeah, I don't know if that's the reaction probably that stood out the most for me. Yeah. Yeah.
I asked the question because I think we were talking again in the earlier panel about, like, again, we can individually do these things, but should we not be doing these things collectively? Should we not be asking these questions collectively as a society, as a country, as a, you know, global, you know, world? And so again, I think that the university is such a good place to be having these conversations. So I was very happy when I heard that you were having those conversations with students. I mean, you know, they're our future here. So if they're having this kind of reaction, I'm very happy to hear about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe I'll just come at this from a slightly different angle, and it's a rationalization I've heard a lot, and I'll be honest, I kind of bought into it as well, so I'm curious about it. But if we look at how incentives are structured, power consumption and expensive data centers are something that those companies who are developing AI They don't want to pay that money. They're incentivized to minimize that footprint or to cut the costs on these things as much as possible. So that's been often put forward as saying like, well, the industry is incentivized to cut those costs down. So we should, because the incentives are aligned, there's actually more possibility of progress in that domain. I'm just wondering if you see flaws with that rationale and how you would respond to somebody bringing that argument to you.
I think that's a super interesting point. And here I will say this, I'm not an expert in that domain, but the things that I have read regarding that, one thing is, it's not going to be a satisfying answer here, but the researchers that are talking about this, the pattern I've noticed in what they are saying is that the companies, the industry, do not have to report about their energy consumption. So there's very little public knowledge about how much is actually being used. And the numbers that I shared, these researchers are coming at those numbers by sort of reverse engineering things that they know, and then kind of estimating, well, this is probably what's happening. They usually say that they're probably underestimating the result. But because we don't actually know, and the companies are not required to tell us, I find it very hard to know if, as you suggested, these incentives might be working or not. I do question when I think back about the companies that you know that have so many billions of dollars, like Google, and they're talking about, well, we can build a nuclear powered data center. I don't know. I question where the incentives fall into line with that kind of expense. And yeah, I don't have a good response to it, but it's kind of a nebulous area to me. I think it's an interesting point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Decision-making point of whether we would purchase or not purchase. And so I think that's going to eventually have to lead itself. It's always going to be led by the consumer. They're never going to do it on their own.
Okay, thank you everyone for your participation. A big special thank you to our presenter today, Gabrielle, Ryan, Andre, and Joshua. And it's time to wrap up this lightning session.
Thank you, Emmanuelle. And also, thank you for joining us online. I just wanted to, I guess the finale for our digital Skillshare here at Fourspace, I know it's going on. I'd just like to welcome up our University Librarian, Amy Buckland, to give us some closing remarks. Amy, if you just mind going over to the podium, there's a microphone there.
Allô tout le monde! J'espère que vous avez passé une excellente journée. Je suis Amy Buckland, directrice et bibliothécaire en chef ici. So as we close the first in-person day of this year's Digital Skillshare, I want to return to this morning's keynote. Is Dr. Villiansoni here? No? Okay, well, it was amazing, and I'm going to tell you why. He invited us to reconsider how we approach artificial intelligence, not simply as a tool to optimize productivity, but as something deeply entangled with human bodies, creative practice, ethics, and care. That reframing felt particularly powerful in the context of today's conversations. At a moment when new AI tools are emerging at a rapid pace, it was grounding to be reminded that innovation is most meaningful when it remains human-centered, supports critical thinking, well-being, and thoughtful engagement. Tout au long de la journée, nous avons vu cet esprit se refléter dans les sessions éclairs. Nous avons exploré des outils et des plateformes pratiques, des approches pédagogiques et des méthodes de travail en matière de recherche, des considérations relatives à l'accessibilité, des pratiques en matière de données et les technologies émergentes. But beyond the tools themselves, what stands out from today is the willingness to share, to exchange ideas and across roles and disciplines, and to learn from one another's experimentation and experience with your child's drawing, for example. That exchange is at the heart of the Digital Skillshare. This event exists to create a space for staff and faculty to grow digital skills together, to build collective capacity across the university, and to strengthen our community. Digital literacy is not separate from the library's mission either, it's central to it, and we see that here today. Libraries have always supported the critical engagement with information and knowledge creation. I've heard the word ecosystem come up already. Today, that responsibility extends into these ecosystems in which we teach, research, and work. Supporting digital fluency, ethical awareness, thank you, Josh, and digital well-being is part of how we serve this community. So I want to extend sincere thanks to all of our presenters for sharing your expertise and especially your curiosity. Thank you to Dr. Villiansoni for an inspiring keynote, to Carolyn Santos for kicking things off. Big thanks to our partners at ForceSpace for always having such a great environment to host, and to the committee involved in planning today. And a huge thanks to Yasha for bringing us all together to learn from one another yet again this year. This exchange and sharing continues tomorrow for our virtual programming, so I encourage you all to join us online as we continue to explore. Merci à tous et toutes d'être venus. Le Skillshare ne serait rien sans vous. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Just thanks everyone also for joining us online. Just to let you know, we're going to close up that Zoom now. We're going to close up our live stream. Those remain available though. These presentations are there on our YouTube channel. You can revisit those. And you should also continue to have a wonderful digital Skillshare days coming up. Thank you. Bye, everyone.